there's been a lot of comments recently, a lot of news stories actually hitting AV forums about products with some pretty large price tags. Now, it's not a new thing, but in the current climate where we've got a cost of living crisis and everything else, people announcing loudspeakers at 40 grand a pair, just for, not even a pair, it's a center channel speaker from McIntosh at 40 grand. What are these companies thinking?
They're thinking two things. The first is a deliberate thing. When you are confronted with financial uncertainty, if you are a long-standing company with a significant client base, you can, if you like, it's the equivalent of doing a sort of solid investment thing. A small percentage of your clientele are utterly immune to financial catastrophe. I mean, statistically, one or two of them might have their circumstances changed if they've bet on the wrong horse. But for the most part, they ride out these things completely oblivious. So if you've got these things, and I need to stress that they don't, as a percentage case, have a significantly higher margin than more affordable items. They do cost a lot to make. Oh, another cat's joined. That's what the noise is. But the result is that you just end up making, you end up making a significant amount of money out of this, limited number of clientele. There's something else which is more accidental. Some of this is done as a sort of precautionary measure when things get tight, but actually the development times for these things, and this is the same with so many luxury goods, when most of these expensive items that have appeared in the news on AV forums in the last couple of weeks actually appeared first, or actually began their development rather, things weren't anything like this would all be pre-COVID. This would be, to say nothing of recent conflicts or anything like that. So you actually start making these things when you're feeling flush. And then sometimes they end up launching at entirely the wrong time. Cars are very good for that. Hi-fi is less affected by this. But essentially, what you're looking at is a combination of pragmatism or cynicism. Your mileage may vary as to which one you want to call. And also the fact that when a number of these things began to break cover, or began to be developed rather, things looked rather less catastrophic than they do now. The one thing that's worth pointing out, and I don't want to pick out any particular news story on this measure of making extremely expensive things, it works if you've been around for a very long time. So a number of the brands that have announced expensive things this time round, these are long-standing companies with a strong existing client base, and there's absolutely, there's a number of people that will buy these items. If you're a brand new company launching into the current climate with something extremely expensive, I wish you the very best of luck, but I don't know how that's going to go.
Yeah. Martin, what's your thoughts on this?
This one has 46 drivers in it, doesn't it?
Yeah, one or two.
So you must get very clear dialogue.
Well, I've had a demonstration of these. They sound fine, on the understanding that one, truly high-end AV is not my speciality field, and two, they sound, I think deliberately so, they sound that quite normal. You don't sit there going, "Whoa, it's a voice of God" experience. So they do what McIntosh does, what they do, and they don't care what anyone else thinks. They just go about doing what it is. It's a design process that I find a little confusing.
The other side, though, Ed, is desirability. You mentioned McIntosh. I've always desired McIntosh.
No, absolutely.
Because it's unobtainable for a lot of people, and I think that's what makes it desirable.
Well, yes. I mean, it's interesting. There's two levels to this as well. One of the items that's been listed as a talking point for this is the Focal Utopia headphone, for which I have literally written the review, and it will be going up onto the site in short order. That's expensive. It's £4,700. I'm not going to pretend that's anything other than a huge amount of money for a pair of headphones. But it goes back to comments I've made about other expensive headphones. They're not something that exists alongside expensive loudspeakers for a number of customers. They are a complete and permanent alternative to, and they do things that very, very expensive loudspeakers struggle to do. So you've got to make a value calculation based on for some of these items based on how they intend to be used and sort of what they're targeted at. But the other thing, and I've banged this drum when you were talking about how to buy things at more affordable price points, we have to get into our head that every single price point incrementally is increasing. Inflation is not messing around this time, and even though consumer electronics has bucked the trend for the best part of 30 years, certain price points are going to cease to exist. And with that, price points that currently seem quite absurd at this point are going to be pretty normal in 10 years. I'm going to make that call, and you can mock me if I'm still alive in 10 years' time.
So, Martin, you've got a lot of experience in the audio field dealing with a lot of these expensive brands as well in the past and so on. So what's your thoughts on the market?
Well, I think what Ed said is right. I think there's always going to be a place for those extreme high-ticket items. I have to say, I did snigger a little bit when I read the McIntosh release, actually, because I had to cover it on one of the other channels. I just, particularly, I've struggled to take McIntosh seriously ever since they released the light box, which I think cost $2,500, wasn't it? And it was supposed to sit in a rack with your other McIntosh devices.
Well, yes. I mean, the whole thing about McIntosh is you are supposed to have lots of it. If you look at how when they allow it to be used in films, it's all, you don't just have a McIntosh amplifier. You have a custom install cupboard of the stuff with lots of mystery boxes, all of which with big glowing logos. So I mean, it's a very specific aesthetic. Although I have more time for that aesthetic, having now used the products. I mean, they look fussy and they look weird, but they are actually genuinely joyous to use. So I'm more forgiving about it than I was. But yes, I mean, it's a bit over the top from a European perspective. I got you there.
But of course, the other flip of the coin here is that these products, like you say, going back to R&D and so on, these products have to exist sometimes for that technology then to lead down into the wider market. So if you have a new technology, or you have and almost all manufacturers have their halo products, where they put all the latest technology in there, and then it trickles down. So these, they have to exist. They're not in huge numbers, but people are interested in going out and buying these, and it's something that certainly when I used to cover a lot of the custom install market, it's surprising how much of another level there is when it comes to this hobby that we just don't get to see on a regular basis, because it's by word of mouth and so on, and dealers that you've probably never heard of, that are selling a lot of this high ticket stuff on. So there is a whole new world out there, another world out there that you don't see on a daily basis and so on. No. And this is where a lot of this product tends to live.
And it is amazing how some of these manufacturers do make stuff which really does sound fantastic. I mean, I know there is the law of diminishing returns, but some of the stuff is absolutely mind-blowing as you go up the scale.
Well, I made the mistake of, obviously I reviewed that Vertair turntable at Christmas. I ended up buying it. I then went and listened to the big one, which is now not much shy of £200,000, and it was using exactly the same cartridge as my one uses. And there was a version of mine next to it, and it was irritating how much further it went. I mean, I'm not suggesting that I'm going to trade in my house for it, but no, nevertheless, the law of diminishing returns infuriates me because it moves further up than I had considered that it was. It was a thing.
And I think for a lot of us AV enthusiasts as well, a lot of us do this as our living and so on. But for a lot of AV enthusiasts out there, it's kind of like car enthusiasts as well. You want to know about the luxury items. You want to know about, if you're a car enthusiast,
you don't sit on the toilet reading about MPVs.
Exactly. So you want to see these. They're aspirational products, and they have to exist. And it's great that these products still exist, and hopefully will exist into the future, because it gives everybody an idea of what is possible. Jules, any input on this one before we move on?
Way out of my price league, but. Yeah, I mean, as you say, that end of the market is pretty inflation proof. There's always going to be people around paying 40% tax.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice one.